All right, 6:24, I'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order for March 26, 2018. First on the agenda is Public Safety. 2.1, the RCMP Municipal Reporting. Staff Sergeant Brent Matisse not here, I'm told.
I would suggest that we invite him to the next meeting, and if necessary, to bring some backup with respect to answers to some questions. I know you had brought forth quite a concern that I think is shared by many, and you may want to bring that forward in open session now.
I do. I have full intentions of doing just that. Over the last, I'm going to say, to be fair, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've been approached by a shockingly large number of people letting me know in no uncertain terms that they're sick and tired of being afraid to go downtown. They can't go to stores. They can't get money out of the bank. They're being harassed for the dollar that's in their shopping cart. And this needs to come to an end. People are upset about this, and I do not blame them. And I really think the RCMP, we have talked many, many times with the RCMP about this very issue. And it disturbs me that it's not in this third quarter report. Anywhere. Not a single word. And so, I really think that they need to spend the time to address this issue. It just sickens me that people who live in this community are afraid to go downtown. It's just unbelievable. And that needs to be repaired. And so I'm happy to bring that up with the staff sergeant, invite him to our next meeting. Just really upsetting. Anybody else? Looking at the report. Yes?
Thank you, Jim, for bringing that up, because I've been approached a lot from people. I've seen it being downtown a lot. I see it a lot. I've seen actually people run away, trying to cross the streets and run away with them. I've saw the the fighting and everything, and not just the fighting between themselves. Like, I feel that everybody in this community has to be safe, and that's the major thing. Everybody has to be safe.
The other thing I forgot to mention, I think is critically important, and I know I sound like a broken record, but you need to call the police. You may not think that they'll show up, and that'll anger you, but you still need to call the police. A phone call generates a file number, and a file number gets put on a pile, and the higher that pile gets, the quicker it gets attention. And so if you don't call the police, then you're not helping the situation. I know it's a pain, but you need to call the police. So I'm just encouraging people, when these things happen, please call the police. Okay? There we go. Did you want to say something, Randy?
Yeah, the one question I would also have is, we're paying for a community constable. I'd like to know where that constable is.
Yeah, me too.
And are we paying full-time RCMP wages for it?
Yeah, me too.
And then there's $10,000 for renovation, so we don't own that building, we rent that building.
Why are we paying for renovations?
So why would we pay for renovations? That should be the building owner's expense. Am I crazy or am I crazy?
So what we will do is we will invite him back to the next meeting. We will send these questions ahead of time so that we're prepared to have the answers for them.
Absolutely. Okay.
I'd like to point out to everybody that I know it's a real pain to call the RCMP now with the new system, because you're calling the 911 number and you're getting Brandon or Winnipeg, and you have to give the whole thing. It was very convenient before, is calling the girls there and you say, hi, this is Margaret, or this is so-and-so, here, and then the RCMP were notified right then and there, like if they're in their office and stuff. So it is very irritating. You can be put on hold, but actually this week too, last week I have made it, if I've seen something, and yes, I was put on hold, but I did call, and we have to call.
I want to give a number too. The more I get talking about this, the more upset I get. But just to drive home the point about call the police. Last year to date, 2016-17, 8,679 times the police were contacted. 8,679. And over the last 2 months, people have told me it's never been worse than it is now. Yet the number is only 6,900. You're not calling the police. And you just have to. So the numbers do not reflect that we have the issue that people are saying. The numbers are down, when in fact it's much worse. So, all right, here we go. I could go on there for the next hour or two.
Well,
Sorry?
it'd be nice to hear what
Yes.
the response is, because the flip side of that is maybe things are actually improving, but the street conversation of people is not changing. If the numbers are to be accepted, then there's a reduction in calls to the police for whatever reason. And as the mayor says, that it'd be nice to get some clarity as to what kinds of calls they are and if they're changing.
We know what kind of calls there are. They're drinking in public. They're urinating in public. They're hassling people for $1. They're bugging them. They're trying to steal their groceries. They're trying to steal things from them. That's what's going on. Anybody who doesn't see that is not getting downtown very often. It needs to stop. All right, 3.1, lot sale.
This was actually submitted by yourself, and it was to kind of coordinate some resources when it comes to the sale of the lots. The CDC has actually agreed to undertake this, and they're kind of taking the lead with it. They've taken the information that I've submitted with additional, and they're going to arrange for that meeting.
Okay, good.
Just as long as it's happening, is my understanding.
Yeah. I just want to say publicly that I think it's important that either this council or a committee of this council, the Community Development Corporation, does a little hand-holding as we get 31 construction projects underway. And that we help them, that this is how you know, if you're having a hard time figuring out how to get your mortgage, let's bring in some people to talk about mortgages. Let's bring in some construction people. Let's just talk to them about what they need to get done over the next 24 months and how we can help them do that instead of just waiting and saying, well, they didn't do anything. So let's work with them and drive this project home. This is one of the best things that's happened here in decades, and it's important to make sure this thing has a successful conclusion.
They have a really good Facebook page going too.
Yeah, lots of information. All right, boy, it's not my turn anymore. Okay, 3.2, building on half lots.
So right now, our current bylaw doesn't permit or let you rebuild on half lots. We get requests a lot of the time, and right off the go, we say it's not in our zoning bylaw. However, you can apply for a variation order. I really think, and Jen, you're also one that receives most of these calls, we need to really consider on an individual basis and not discourage people from building on half lots. If you build in certain restrictions or in certain ways through the building bylaws, through the building code, there's no reason why they can't.
Yeah.
So what we basically wanted was permission and a resolution that says, as much as we agree that our zoning doesn't permit it, that we give them the opportunity to go through the variation process. And a lot of that, I know you were speaking with Randy, a lot of it is a matter of just having less windows or having different different barriers on the exterior. And there's nothing saying people can't build their property or on their property lengthwise versus widthwise. So to me, as long as they're meeting whatever the site requirement is, I don't know why that's tax base we're missing out on. And until that bylaw is changed to permit that, why not?
I think you're opening the door to some interesting architectural designs too. So,
Yeah, sure.
You know.
And like the tiny homes, like that's the way that that's things are going.
That's something
like,
we definitely want to see in our new zoning bylaw.
At like a housing thing, and I was talking like people in my generation, no offense to anybody that's, you know, a little bit older than me, but like we're not really like, I know, but we're not going towards like, oh, you know, I need the 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, like whatever, right? Like it's all about being economically friendly and reducing your carbon footprint these days. So people are going more for necessity over luxury.
And in the review of our zoning bylaw, that was one thing we looked at, is almost a specific area for the mini homes. I think would be ideal.
Yeah.
It's happening everywhere.
Encouragement, yes. Anybody else? Jack?
Yeah, how many people have approached, like, to build on
We've had a
half
fair
lot?
amount of
Like,
people.
over
Yeah.
the years, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That'd be interesting to
We've
see.
had a couple houses on half lots that we've lost over the past
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they can't
years,
rebuild.
and then they can't rebuild, and they're
No,
just stuck with
exactly.
an
There's
empty
lots,
half
there's
lot.
lots of, destroyed
They're waiting for
half
their
lot
neighbor
houses,
to.
to sell, buy their lot,
Yeah.
or sell it to buy theirs, or
Yeah,
whatever, yeah.
exactly.
Brian?
I was just wondering how many half lots are we talking in town? Because whether or not you do it all by having them do the variance, or is it worth
There's a
actually
lot.
changing that?
There's a lot.
Because those lots aren't going to get bigger or change size. They're just how we handle them is what's important.
Yeah, there's a number of derelict half-lots, there's a number of vacant half-lots.
Yeah, but
So-
what I'm wondering about is how many lots, half-lots there are, because there could be a house and a half-lot
hundred, I would
that they're living in and it's fine, but if they had a different opportunity to rebuild or something under different rules,
But they're
then,
not, that's the problem.
Well-
When that house burns on that half lot, we're not permitting them, and it creates insurance problems for them actually, because now they're not permitted to rebuild on that property. So now they're not gonna get the payout that they normally would to rebuild a brand new home on
We need to
it.
fix it.
So it's creating some issues for the person
right,
that
right,
loses
but if
all.
we're talking 200 lots in town that suffer this
No, that's not
problem,
200 lots,
or-
it'd be
or
like 50 to 80.
50 days, well, that's still a substantial number, and I guess my wonder is, do you make the adjustment at the zoning bylaw level and then once and then it's done? Or do you deal with 80 lots one at a time?
We already
And
have
it
it.
depends on the work.
Sorry to interrupt you, Brian, I didn't mean to. We already have it in our zoning that we're gonna be making that change, but that zoning bylaw is gonna probably be at least a year, if not better. I think right now it would be irresponsible for us to turn people away.
I agree.
Okay,
That's wholly our intent, is to put it in our zoning bylaw.
Right, so it's-
This is to limp us through until we get it done.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Well, I think this is very good stuff. I know I've been talking to Randy Manich even in the spring about this. And there's a lot of, not everybody has the big family, like they're going to the tiny homes, and not necessarily the tiny homes, but a smaller home. There is a lot of single people that want to own their own home, and this is the perfect scenario for them.
Okay. 4.1, payroll and accounts.
So we would require a resolution to be passed for pay period 6 in the amount of $102,888.64. General checks in the amount of $224,769.51, and electronic funds transfers in the amount of $58,823.18. Total disbursements of $386,481.33. As you can see, some of our larger ticket items was vehicle and equipment insurance in the amount of $36,000, and Ackland's in the amount of $43,000, and that was for fire department
And
supplies.
of course, propane.
Yep.
Massive amount
Soon
of
to
money
drop.
every month. All right, if Councillor Gibb would here, he'd want to talk about electric furnace, I'm sure. All right, let us move along then. 4.2, signing authority, destination marketing.
Crystal's thinking, told you so, told you so, told you so. What we're asking is for a change of signers on the Destination Marketing Committee bank account. This is to make smoother operations and provide the town with the opportunity to carry on with our normal bookwork.
We haven't had smooth operations on this since day one. How is
Nope.
this supposed to make it smoother?
This will make it much smoother because it's not going through the committee. The committee will tell us what's needed and we'll cut the checks.
So,
Crystal.
yes, I actually adamantly opposed to switching it back because when the town was the signing, it was such a hassle for us to get the checks and everything in the first place, and then it was a process for us to get it switched over. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit offended that he would say that it represents significant control risks over funds included in that account to mismanagement or even potentially fraud. I'm a council rep and I have signing authority. I'm the treasurer on that committee. So if you can't, I'm sorry, I know people can say things, whatever, about a politician, but if you can't trust your council rep on that committee to ensure that things are being managed appropriately and that we have adequate processes in place, do you have a counselor that's on, why would you
Sorry,
promote
that's
that
a misunderstanding on his
counselor
point
to
with that, Crystal, and I want to make that clear. What he meant is he doesn't like putting members of that board in that position. It's not a matter of not trusting. It's people have the perception of, oh, well, it's this private little whatever. That's what he's trying to get away with. He's not saying he doesn't trust what anybody's doing. He's going, let's get rid of the thought that anybody can think that way. Not for a moment, otherwise he'd have been knocking on your door much earlier.
People think I raise taxes so I can go on a holiday. Come on.
You
People
did
are
go on
gonna
2
think all
holidays
kinds.
this year.
Yeah, I just think that And it's like, you know, like we pass an annual budget, we sit down and we pass, you know, we passed a joint budget with the CDC for our staff person, and, you know, we allocate a certain amount to that every year. We allocate a certain amount to grants. Again, like we do have balances in place, you know, every check that's written comes by board resolution. We pass it at the committee level, and then a check requisition is made. It needs to be signed by 2 committee members before, you know what I mean, anything can be paid. So I think that we have adequate checks and balances. If there's another process or a specific process that Graham would like us to use, I think we would totally be open to that. But my fear would just be that I think that we've put a system in place, it's working really well, and I don't want to change it because I don't feel like it's broken, on our end anyways.
So maybe, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Maybe as a suggestion, what it could be is, like, because I know he claims that in our monthly financial statements, and I think that's part of the reason. So maybe even at each month end, when you guys are doing your own, to submit it to him also. That might be part of the, like, the controlling.
And like, does it need to be monthly? 'Cause like, we've switched now even to like, so before we just kind of met whenever, but like now we're going to quarterly, right?
I can ask him.
So like, we'll be approving grants quarterly so that we can kind of have some more regular meetings, regular intake dates, and then do like regular check runs, right? So that we know we're gonna approve grants here, so a week later, we're gonna do all the checks for them. And I know he had some concerns, I guess, over us having a budget, because we do have lunchtime meetings. So we did in our budget, do a budget for lunch for our committee members, because we all work full-time. We take time out of our lunch. So, I mean, if council has concerns or issues with that, I mean, we definitely don't want to do something that makes council feel uncomfortable or is going to put the town in a bad situation. But I just need to know that.
I think that can be addressed when we're doing your budget presentations.
And I know for 2 years, the only expense that they came out of that fund was when I bought lunch for $75, right?
So we just, I mean, we don't do anything elaborate. We do like sandwiches and fruit at our meetings. And again, it's because for the most part, we do lunchtime meetings.
I thought they were shrimp skewers.
No, sorry, we do like, you know.
Could have sworn I seen lobster coming in somewhere.
What I will do then is confirm what kind of reporting would be
Yeah,
required to
and like if he
continue the
has a
status quo.
template that he wants us to use, if, like I said, if there's a specific process that he wants us to use, I'm okay with that. And we're totally open to that. But like I said, I think that we finally got this system in place. It's working for us, and I would hate to see us mess with it, because I think that, again, it's finally consistent, it's in place, and yeah.
Chad?
So when I look at this, I look at the note from Graham and that sort of thing, and I can see where you're coming from based on what it's saying. But Graham is an accountant, right? Accountants are different people from the rest of the general population. They are. They're different guys. And,
You can say that, I guess.
and
Speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience, it's just, they look at things differently, and what I see, I think, and what Graham is trying to get at with this is just, he's looking at it from probably an audit standpoint, I think, just to make things a little bit easier to roll everything into the town audit and all that sort of thing. I'm fine with whatever's decided on which way to go, but whatever, I don't think there's any slight or anything like that here. I think he's just looking at it to keep everything clean on his end of the books and keep everything easy for audit time.
For sure. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that there are some people on our board that would like to see our committee become more standalone, more so like the CDC, so that we have the taste of independence, because there was, you know, there's always that question of, you know, do we follow the vision and the mandate set out by the committee, or is the town going to come up with a vision and a mandate for destination marketing and then pass that on down to us, and that's what we're going to be expected to follow? So, I mean, we're definitely in a gray zone, and we would like to see that become a little bit more black and white. So again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know that that's kind of been something that's been mentioned.
Brian?
I think all the discussion's really good. I think the differentiating factor here, though, is the fact that this is not a board such as the CDC is a board where it's arm's length. This is a committee of council, so it's different in the way the money gets handled, and basically by giving them the authority to write their own checks and do their own bookkeeping. treats them as though they're a board. That being said, the process, and council did do it, we authorized them to go ahead and do it and do that, because we were on a more, we went to, at that time, in a more rigid check writing regime, where you wrote checks twice a month, and that may not have fit into the needs of the committee and that sort of thing going forward. I'm not sure, I think we need to look at it a little closer and at the pros and cons, and as long as it works out that for the committee it's efficient and reasonable for them, because you don't want to lose the efforts of the committee. It's always a problem getting volunteers to work on these things if their wishes are ignored. But at the same time, we want to find that happy medium between the accounting process that we have to deal with, because we are dealing with public funds. We didn't just pass it off to them. We're still a branch of our operation, and we have to look at it that way. But I don't, until we hear a little more detail, I don't think we can
Okay, I just
do anything.
Yeah,
really.
all right, I just checking with Martin, she knows having to say. I at best would like to leave it the way it is. At worst, I would look at tabling this for further discussion. But I'm not prepared to just say.
No, we'll find out the questions if there's anything that we can do reporting differently.
And I mean, I'll definitely bring it back to my
let's
committee
table it
as
for the
well.
next meeting.
We have
Okay.
a meeting coming up.
All right, 4.3, special service levy. The pitchforks in the,
So basically, this was question answer period, some of the questions that have come up, and this is some of the longer answers with it, and this will be provided for anybody that wants it in the next couple of days or Wednesday.
well, just let people know if they're coming to the public hearing on Wednesday. We'll have a question and answer sheet we'd like to hand out, like frequently asked questions, although they're not frequent, it's brand new to us. But just to be able to look at the questions and the answers that are there, it might help things go a little bit smoother on Wednesday evening. Anything else?
I just,
I'm good with it as it's presented here. I'm fine with it. I would like to see this, if we could, get it out on the Facebook page even prior to Wednesday's meeting. I think that would be a good thing.
can we just like kind of edit it so that it's like, you know, in the current proposed bylaw, like so that, you know what I mean? Right now, the way that it reads, it's like, this is for sure going through, which is kind of contrary to the discussion that council has been having.
Yeah.
Like, we've been having discussion that it's probably in its current state not going to move forward. So just so that people are aware that it's not, you know what I mean? We're still.
Proposed special service levy is all
Well,
you would
but
do.
even like, so number 2, so are my property taxes going up $900? No, so instead of just saying no, like saying like in the current proposed bylaw, you know what I mean? Everybody is already paying a portion of the policing cost on their property, some might be, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just
and then
change
she's
it a
got-
little
yeah.
bit, yeah.
I understand.
And like also, we should be saying in the current bylaw, if you own a vacant lot, your
Yeah.
property taxes actually could go up more than $900, or
Okay.
could go up the $900, right?
Yeah. Okay. Then we will do that, just that. Okay. 4.4, tax increment financing.
Sorry, one more thing. Did you ever
Oh.
find out how much OCN pays a year for policing costs? Because that was another really big question that came
Yeah,
up.
I believe it's 0.
I have no idea.
Well, OCN themselves pays 0, yes, because it's federally and provincially funded, but like just what their costs are. I don't know if that's something we can find out, but that was like a question I got a lot. Like,
Yeah.
people want to know a comparison, right?
Yeah.
What does it cost OCN to police their community compared to ours? Because they're almost the exact same size.
And how it cost
52
literally skyrocketed when they
For sure it did.
cut the ribbon at the detachment at OCN.
It was an instant, it was
Yeah,
accommodations.
and OCN is 52% federal government, 48% provincial government pays, and OCN as a community does not pay for policing. It's all paid for through
I'm sure
government.
it's 0.
It is, it's
Through your
OCN
provincial,
itself.
because that's why the RM doesn't pay.
It's federal and
Yeah.
provincial.
Okay.
No, but no,
Sorry?
that's not true. Because based on their funding agreement, if they have their own police force, they receive money for that. Like when, And then when they built the detachment, they lost a portion of that from their funding agreement from INAC. So
I went on the INAC site and looked at the OCN.
the funding agreement?
It's 52% from the federal government and 48% from the provincial government for their police services.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they saw a reduction in monies, I don't. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I just
I mean, and I
had a
hate to
different
say it, but it was
understanding.
true. When, that was terrible, that there should be an arson, but when that detachment burned down a month before it was supposed to be open, it was like a breath of fresh air, because our costs didn't jump high.
Didn't jump up.
Wait until they rebuilt. So it was nice. All right, sorry to say that, I don't mean it like that, but I remember that event going, oh, this is an awkward way to feel. But anyway, all right, so back to the tax increment financing.
So we've talked about having this person come and speak, rather than making them come all the way down here. Did anybody actually look at what this is, and do you want a presentation?
I'm sorry,
Is it
I
necessary?
never seen this email. I would like this
This
I
has
think,
been a whole presentation on it.
I
I would like to see a presentation.
yeah.
Okay, when would you like to see it?
Well, make arrangements, I guess, yeah. I
So
don't
just at a regular council meeting, whenever?
know.
Yeah, it's not a
April
big
or May
rush,
or
it's-
June or something, but soon.
Yeah, before October.
Yeah, say the 24th,
Okay,
okay?
So is there they'll come at their cost to do this
it
presentation?
should, yeah, because it's
We're not
provincial, they
paying
should.
No. Because the other thing is with some of these things, webinars is a way to go, especially when it's PowerPoint stuff, and you get the dialogue without the travel costs.
And I would suggest we do a really good read on it and have some questions ahead of time.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I take it these are all different, okay, so let's just deal with it. 4.5, utility deficit.
So, Public Utilities Board requires that we cover the deficit, oh my goodness, deficit.
My bad, yeah.
We have a $400,000 deficit over 3 years, which would be charged, if we charge it against the reserve, we're just gonna end up increasing everything again. So Graham has recommended that we look at an increase on a tax portion. There's a certain line in our budget that will enable us to cost recovery on our budget, and that we leave our reserves alone. We don't have a bunch of money in surplus. If we deplete our reserves, we're gonna be charging back anyway. So what he's saying is let's make a special line for 3 years that's going to be part of our deficit recovery. The whole idea of increasing your rates is gonna address moving forward, we hope. But we kinda don't have a choice. You either gotta pay it out of your reserve, which you're gonna turn around and get anyway, like you're gonna tax back, or you put it in a specific line in our budget.
We can never win.
There's some grunts and groans coming from up here.
Well, I know, like,
And it
how
is.
come we can
I'm sorry?
never win, it feels like.
Yeah.
I do
That's what I'm saying,
feel that
it's not
sometimes you take a
specific.
step forward and 2 steps back.
That was on the water?
If we could just have your attention for a moment. Let's
Sorry,
see.
I've got this backwards. This one goes on your water bill as a line, not on the taxes.
Okay.
Oh,
Even better.
But there's one coming up that's gonna
On
be
top of the water
taxes.
increase we just
Oh.
passed,
Yep,
Yeah.
but you have to. You can't recover it through what you've got now. So it's basically a rate over the next 3 years to recoup the 400.
yeah, I just, it's, I don't know what to say. I mean, it took a long time to get to where we are, and it's gonna take a while to
Get it where it needs to be.
get it under control.
I agree that the last thing we need to do right now is deplete those reserves.
I
When we're
agree.
talking about some of these major
If you're looking at
costs.
lagoons and everything else,
Oh.
we need to be very cautious.
When we're talking about millions of dollars for upgrading the lagoon, this is $400,000 goes a long way.
And sadly, in the past, we've depleted those reserves because we kept covering everything with it, right? Every deficit, ever come up, every surplus. That's what we kept paying everything with.
Yeah.
Now you don't have those things there.
Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act.
Jen has spent a couple
Feel
of
like we're
nervous
not gonna discuss
breakdowns.
it anymore?
Well, what else you want to say?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You really don't have a choice
I
unless you
know,
deplete your
I
reserves
know,
and then
I
go
know.
back.
Trust me, I know. I looked at the budget, I looked at
Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act.
pool of money.
Jen has spent a crazy, incredible amount of time on this. I think you paved the way. I'll give you kudos to this. You've paved the way to other municipalities, including the AMM, because we've had zero help with trying to establish this. This has been months that you've been doing this, Jen, and, well, months that it's been this close, right?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is wanting to bring this for first reading. This
Yeah.
is a nice thick document, and kudos to you on it.
Yeah, I agree.
It brought many more questions with it that are following.
In many cranky times.
4.7, designated officers.
So as part of that, you would require a designated officer for the authority to enforce town bylaws. I know.
She was drinking before the meeting.
If I would have, this would have went
It would have been
easier.
so much smoother.
So in that, we name positions rather than people. So we also need that bylaw, so we'll be bringing that forward for first reading.
Okay, bylaw number 4572. Is this the amendment?
Imagine that. This is also part of the Provincial Offences Act, which we require, so
Which-
we need to,
Came into effect because of the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act.
so yeah, just one more bylaw for first reading.
Okay.
It gets rid of the Summary Convictions Act as well. So we're gonna get rid of that and all our other bylaws, which is,
Okay,
So then,
appreciate it. So yeah, 4.9 is a great long list here.
by saying all these lovely changes from the last 3 to 4 bylaws, will also require us to amend our bylaws to be in compliance with the Provincial Offences Act. Ones that we are aware of quickly is the animal control, derelict vehicles, unsightly property, streets and sidewalks, noise and fire, and I'm sure there's going to be more as we move along. So that'll be first readings that she'll be bringing for amending those bylaws.
Is this, just on one of them, is this going to put some teeth into a bylaw that we'll be able
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
do something with unsightly
for sure.
properties?
yes.
For sure, because right now there's such a lengthy process that it, like, well, I can't even go to the courts anymore because they don't want to look after it.
What about unsightly commercial properties?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, everything comes into this.
You know, a place that used to be a restaurant.
Yep, that's the one. Who I
Name and
understand might have a couple of changes made in the next few weeks because things started going through better.
Are we setting ourselves, are we setting the bar too low at $1,000?
Don't have a choice.
We can't go more
You
than
can't charge more than
$1,000?
$1,000.
But we could say like issue multiple $1,000 fines.
You could do daily, can you not?
Yeah, they can be daily.
That's what I was just
But
wondering.
the bylaws in the meat and bones of the actual bylaws, most of them say every day it's a charge.
So we could
So-
essentially charge somebody $1,000 a day if they got up to that.
Up to-
Okay, I
up
just
to,
didn't,
yeah.
okay, I just didn't want us to, yeah.
Yes, so
I
if you
forgot
have
about the
a,
daily thing.
yeah, if you have a barking dog and it
Yeah.
continues to bark today, you can charge up to $1,000. If it's barking tomorrow, you can charge them $1,000 tomorrow. So it's
Doesn't bark Wednesday.
I don't think so.
$2,000.
Not after $2,000.
All
That
right.
dog wouldn't be barking.
4.10, vehicle for hire bylaw. What would bylaw create?
This has been an interesting one. Jen again spent a lot of time on this. We were prepared when it came through with the new acts where they took the regulations away from, I can't think of it, transport.
Motor transportation.
transport. So what came to light is MPI offers different rates for passenger vehicles for hire versus taxis. For a taxi vehicle for hire, or for a vehicle for hire, passenger vehicle for hire, you get lower insurance rates, but you're running less hours. You're specific to the time you can operate. So I know some current taxis have actually taken out their meters and their signage on their vehicles and are going with the lower rate. My question is, does it matter to us what they're doing, or do you want them to all be taxis, and how do we want to deal with the vehicle for hire? The biggest thing is we have no one to monitor anything, but if you're doing any of this, we want you to follow the same regulations, like bringing in, make sure you have your criminal checks and all that other stuff.
Absolutely, I think
So-
we should still monitor, and so, I, like, the idea that somebody could just register a vehicle and say that they're a vehicle for hire, and that it's, to me, that they don't have to mark it or anything, that's just seedy, for lack of a better word. So if we can regulate that it doesn't matter and that you have to have a decal, then I would be all for
But then
that.
that's different than what
That's
we're
different.
asking. What we're saying is taxi, what we had right now is you had to have all that stuff. With a vehicle for hire, you don't.
But can we regulate them too, as under our business bylaw? Like, you can't
You
have
can
a
do whatever you want through
license.
taxi.
You can't have a license as a passenger vehicle for hire from the town even, unless you
You're going to have
something.
very good grounds why you're not going to permit I talked to the province, and we have to have very good grounds why you're not going to permit a passenger vehicle for hire in the town.
Safety, public safety.
But if they're gonna be following the same rules as the taxi guys,
Whether a vehicle for hire, whether it's a taxi cab or a limousine,
different
that sort of
categories.
thing, whether they have a light on the roof or a sign on the door, the one thing that they all have in common is their license plates start with an X.
Not anymore.
Are you sure?
that's why they're doing this.
That's why it's done this way.
By doing a passenger vehicle for hire, you're probably saving almost $4,000
Yeah.
in your insurance, whereas a taxi is gonna cost you $2,000 more.
So if I take a cab from where I live to go to, I don't know, the Royal Bank, and one day it's $6.50 and the next day it's $9.50, that's okay?
That's
That's
none of
what
your
it is.
business.
No, we can't really do anything with that, because
But
if it's a
there's meters.
passenger vehicle, but if it's a passenger vehicle picking you up,
There's
and I have a
meters.
registration, I can charge you whatever I want.
Passenger vehicle does not have to have a meter.
It actually can't have the meter,
It
that's
can't.
why,
That's why it's got less insurance.
So,
That's why.
unless the province is going to come and help us
They won't, I've already
enforce
asked.
these complicated restrictions and rules, or send some assistance, that we'll just stick with our taxi cabs, and we don't want vehicles for hire.
We just-
Thank
It's a,
you
we
very
it's a
much.
taxi cab vehicle for hire or a passenger vehicle
Yeah.
for hire or a limousine vehicle for hire. Is the category.
So have any other municipalities
Nope.
successfully?
Nothing's
not
been
many
done.
have taxi bylaws, actually.
Nope.
Didn't we just
This was
approve the
another
vehicles
thing
for
where I'd
hire?
asked AMM to
Yeah.
provide us with
Yeah,
information.
and now this is happening.
Yeah.
We went through vehicles for hire
Yeah.
and you passed the first bylaw, or you gave the bylaw first reading. And then when that got out, the insurance company started calling us and informed us of this, that we weren't addressing the passenger vehicle for hire, only the taxi cab vehicle for hire. And they wanted clarification if the town was going to allow passenger vehicles for hire or just taxi cab vehicles for hire.
I cannot believe how confused I am.
It's
Me too.
very confusing.
Very confusing.
Have we spoken with our taxi companies? Because if the
They're
move-
asking us to make our decision because one person already went ahead and is paying the lesser rate. And that's where this person came forward and said, well, hey, if he doesn't have to, why do I have to? So people are wanting to rip out all their meters and everything else and take off all their decals because it saves them insurance money.
Because we have nothing saying that we are not authorizing passenger vehicles for hire, so
If you're charging for a service, though, do you not have to have a certain level of liability coverage?
that's up to MPI, I
Yeah.
guess.
Like you would request them to do the same licensing as a taxi guy. It's just,
Does anybody else think that's a bit odd?
yeah.
Because they still have like.
Well, this is.
And
this-
who's gonna
this-
monitor those
personal
hours? How do I know what
insurance,
your
they just
hours
get
were,
more
right?
Third-party liability insurance and all that sort of
Well,
stuff.
this is
And
what they're
then-
dealing with in the huge, big cities. Like,
Yeah,
this
and-
is Uber, this is Lyft,
Yeah.
whatever, like, this is just what they're dealing with, and it's being addressed in different communities in different ways, so,
A lot of municipalities just went like this and said we're having
We're not
nothing to do
having
with it.
anything.
yeah,
No, not
So
having
it's kinda-
anything, they're
well,
doing whatever, you can
yeah,
have taxis,
free-for-all
yeah, it's
is
a
what I meant.
free-for-all, yeah.
yeah.
So,
The municipality's
How
not
do you
making
know if the
any-
car's come to pick you up if it doesn't have a light on the roof and a sign on the door?
It's a chance you take.
Good luck. Let's hope for the best.
What about the protection shields? When does that come into play?
And is that something we can regulate, protection shields? Can we say that they have to have protection shields?
If you want.
You know, it's only a few months ago a
It's your
cab driver
bylaw.
was stabbed,
Yeah.
you know?
And to me, it just seems like we're making it looser.
I
Really?
definitely
Well-
don't really, I don't want
started
to
out-
make it loose, like, I don't know, call me an old biddy, but like,
You just went to lengths to prove how young you were. Now you want
I
to be
know,
an old.
I know, but like, I want my taxi cabs, like, monitored, and I want them,
You want the security of knowing that you're getting into a vehicle and it's registered, it's safe, and you're not gonna have any hassle. I'm paying the same for this vehicle as I am paying for the next vehicle that's gonna pick me up.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause who's to say somebody calls a cab or, you know, somebody stops, well, I'm a cab.
Because like to me, like, yeah, okay, so the person needs to have a license, but like, so their car isn't marked. And so, I mean, that just, there's so much liability and safety issues. Because then you can say to the person like, well, can I see your license? Well, how do we know that it's not a fake license? Or like, how do you know that this person has
And
gone
do you have
through
to have
all
the
the
class
checks
4?
and
Nope, not anymore.
balances?
I could go drive.
Yeah.
You could be
There's
calling
no-
for Randy's passenger vehicle and Jen can go pick you up, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the classes have,
And everybody thinks this is fine around the province?
Oh, no,
Well,
I think because
There's no
there's not
comments.
many, there's not many people that have it.
this is part of the issue, is
Yeah.
people, there's technologies, there's app. Uber was based on an app, not on vehicles, not on anything else. Just match up somebody who wants to drive with somebody that wants a ride. Boom, you get together and there's a process there and somebody's paying Uber something along the way to do it. I don't think we can necessarily stop that wave and be the isolated community that doesn't get into it. I think we may have to look at what's balanced or reasonable for if we continue with taxis. Because I think, to me, that's the old school system, is taxis. The new system is Uber and the like. Whether we like it or not, it can go on under our nose and we can't really, how are you going to get enough evidence to do anything?
It's really no different, you're right, Brian, than the Airbnbs now that are becoming so popular. It's the exact same thing.
It's the underground economy that comes out of part of this. You know, I've got an app that tracks all my to and from driving and whatnot automatically. It's just there, and I know from my house to here is, 2.2 kilometers.
I'm laughing, is that your app or is that your wife's app? You went to the post office 3 times today.
Maybe we need to get out of this.
I don't
So-
know. I'm like, it's not broken, or are we trying to fix it?
But we should have more of a discussion, I think, with taxis, because that's the problem right now, as I see it.
And they're
If
asking
the
us.
province has changed the rules
Yeah.
and trickled it down to us, and we don't have anything to deal with the passenger vehicle issue, but we're still controlling the taxis, we need to look at that farther and have a discussion with them to see what's going to satisfy.
We don't want to be
Because you don't
responsible
wanna
for them
lose-
paying too much
Yeah,
for
and
insurance.
you don't want to lose taxi service in your
That's why
community.
they've come
'cause
here. It's
nobody-
the taxi people that do the registration and that want to make sure they're in compliance. Those are
Jen.
the ones that came forward.
My recommendation was to leave the bylaw the way it is, have taxi cab vehicles for hire, and then just throw in passenger vehicle for hire, but make them do everything
Exactly
the
the same
same
thing.
way as the taxi cabs for hire, where you have to have all your, I don't have the bylaw.
Criminal
here.
records.
Criminal record
Yeah.
check, all those.
Vehicle checks.
Vehicle checks, all the town of the paw, little driver's license, instead of calling it a taxi cab vehicle for hire, it'd be a passenger vehicle for hire. Let them decide what they want to be, but you're still going to follow all the same rules when it
Still
comes to the
registered with
town
us,
of the
still
paw.
paying license.
I can buy into that. I can
Still
buy-
paying a license,
Still
you're paying
paying a
everything.
license, nothing, you're still paying your business license, you're still paying your driver's license, you're still letting us know who your drivers are. But instead of calling it just taxi cab vehicle for hire, you can either be a taxi cab vehicle for hire or a passenger vehicle for hire. That's your choice. You're still following all these rules. They're the
Okay,
same
I
across the
just,
board.
Okay.
Because my fear is
Yeah.
if you don't let them put, or not my fear, but if you say you can't be a passenger vehicle for hire,
They're just gonna do
you
it.
all have to be taxi cabs for hire, they're gonna say, no, I'm not gonna be a taxi cab and go do their own thing and we're not even gonna know about it.
Okay. So we're okay to go forward there with the recommendations?
Yes.
So you're not restricting, if anything,
No.
you're letting it, but they're following the exact same rules and regulations. The
matter
only
what they
difference is
are.
gonna be,
Okay.
their insurance is gonna be a little less and they don't have to have all that signage all
Can we
over.
make it a requirement that they have to have their town of the paw vehicle for, passenger vehicle for hire or taxi vehicle for hire license displayed in their vehicle?
It's already in the
Yeah.
bylaw. Yeah. They have to have it carried on them and it has to be in the window.
Deficit recovery.
This is the one that goes on your budget, it's 0.65 mils. And this is recovery of 123 net deficit for 2015, and there was a surplus in 2016, so it kind of counteracts. Again, we didn't have the surplus
Yeah.
that we normally would have.
I know this might not be the right place to ask this question. Well, it's the right place to ask the question, I just don't know if the right guy's in the room. What are we looking at I know it's early yet, but like in terms of a 2017 deficit or
He's not
surplus?
quite done with that as of yet,
Yeah,
but hopefully we have a better idea when we meet next to discuss our budget, which is
Okay.
gonna be,
yeah. I would hold off, yeah. It would just be nice to hold off to kind of see where that's going to go before
Yeah.
we start raising taxes by.
because again, sadly, we have no reserves to get this out of,
No,
and no surplus like normal.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
So-
see, you know, for years, the town was famous for striking a bylaw, a budget, and then, you know, taking money from the ratepayers and not spending it, and then using that money to offset any
Taxation.
costs otherwise. So, you know, every year we say, we're not going to raise taxes, we're not going to raise taxes, we're not going to raise taxes, and then we take a deep breath and then we say, okay, well, we're going to pay our people more money, the gas is more money and all that. Well, the chickens are home, and we need to, I'm much happier going through the headache of, you know, getting down to those few little dollars than we were before. You know, carrying $800,000, $900,000 over is just only to use it, you know, to make yourself look better. It's crazy.
And it's wrong.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's wrong, yeah.
And so.
So now what you're doing is you're bare bones asking the taxpayers for the help.
Yeah.
For
And you're
what we
spending the money you're asking
And
for.
it costs 11
rather
million
than
two,
banking
not
it.
$1.6 million.
Yeah,
Hasn't that been the process all along?
it's not been fiscally, oh my goodness, fiscally responsible.
Yeah. Positions go unfilled, projects don't happen, and yet you budgeted for it, so you know, you put it in your taxes, and then you end up with a surplus at the end of the year.
Whereas now we're scrambling, going, you budgeted for it, you're spending it.
Well,
It's more responsible. It's more responsible.
I would have thought that was going on all along. Because that's.
I don't know what that
that's a-
council before us was doing, but sure glad that we got better. Just kidding.
It's been going on for a long time.
How do we
Many,
know
many
it's
years.
Yeah,
going-
I know. I just like
Okay.
it, Jim, everyone's.
Let me ask a question then on that. How's it gonna change going forward?
It
Well,
has
we-
been changing.
We work harder on our budget to make sure that if we're asking the ratepayers to pay, I'll just pull a number out, $11 million, that we're responsible for that $11 million and not for 10 of it, so we can use an extra one to offset you know, the
Right.
surpluses.
But on the other hand, and now we're still in the budget process, we have to be assured going forward that when dollars are asked for, we actually have all the means to get it done, because.
Pretty sure that's
the
just what I said.
You've done that for the last 2 years.
Yep.
You've done that literally for the last 2
Yeah.
years. We've been bare bones budget, and we know we're not getting it, so it is getting spent. If not, we come back to council before the year end and we say, this project isn't complete, we're carrying it through for next year, and that's when we carry it through. There is no money going into surplus like previous years. And if there is, it's usually something now out of our control where it was a significant project that was either carried over or we decided not to proceed. But in the past, unfortunately, we were billing out to what we were normally going to, like that's what our tax was. So at the end of the year, if it didn't happen, it went into surplus. That surplus money got used to offset the next year, if there was gonna be any kind of deficit, or that's what
Increases or
balanced our
whatever.
budget.
Well-
Our last years, we've balanced our budget ourselves without using it like we have in the past.
Well done.
So tax dollars don't stay on that line until they're used for the project for which they were
Correct.
required.
Well, that's
No,
correct.
that's
That's,
not correct.
Well, not-
if you
See,
weren't using it.
Ideally, that's what would happen. If you ask for $100,000 to do something and you don't do it, then you do it the next year, we just carry it forward now, right?
No, we don't
No,
carry
with
it
the
forward.
resolution of some of it, what has happened in the past, O'Brien, is there would be projects, little mini projects that weren't done, so say there'd be 200,000 in a surplus overall at the end, it would just go into general surplus at the end to offset what's ever coming next year.
And those
It wasn't
projects wouldn't
necessarily
get
a
done.
project, it was a matter of your budget was being
It's
lessened by
the, it's the
that.
famous March 31st spend-off.
And
It
for-
is year end and you have money.
Okay,
Spend it or lose it.
And for whatever reason,
Now we lose it, which is
people
bad.
assume that surplus was actually cash in hand. Well, that's never cash in hand.
Yeah.
That's money we're supposed to collect. And you will never in a perfect year ever collect all your tax dollars. It doesn't work that
No.
way. A lot of those are write-offs. A lot of those are tax sale. Like if you look at it in the last couple of years, we had several properties that went up for tax sale. We had to bite the bullet and pay those taxes on their behalf. That's the way it works. So there was how much of a deficit right there. That was how much money would have been just in our tax sale, right?
Us being sideways by $123,000 over 2 years is.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's almost immaterial, like compared to the size of our budget. Like,
Yeah.
it's nothing.
Yeah,
That's not having somebody in a position for a few months, that's somebody going on leave for 3
Yeah.
months, that's, there are things that add up pretty quickly that make changes of $100,000 within our budget.
it drives me crazy sometimes, but I like this way, way better, so.
It's easy to be, like, you can tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah.
It's, here's what we budgeted, here's what's got left, and you know what, we didn't get to spend it this year, but we have a resolution that says we're bringing it forward next year. It's already earmarked.
Well, and I think like even you just have a better idea of what it actually takes to operate
Yeah.
the town, right? Like
Yeah.
manpower wise, monetary wise, like what are some of the fluffs that we could do without? And so now we know like there's not a lot
Brings
left
that
that we
level
could
of,
do
brings
without,
that level of
right?
transparency.
Yeah.
We have cut out a lot of fluffs.
Exactly.
Sure have. Tremendous. All right, motion to adjourn?
Right
There's
here.
one right
It's my
Did you
favorite.
lift it right off that chair?
It's my favorite motion
Thank you,
to make.
everyone.
Meeting.